Morning to anybody that's watching this on our YouTube presentation. I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who have joined us at this meeting at the Council's website. Members, you are now aware of the need to keep your video camera switched on for the duration of the meeting and to keep your microphone muted except when I invite you to speak. Please click the raised hand function if you wish to ask a question or make a comment. There is always a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask for your patience if we do. Should this occur, I may declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed and the public broadcast is paused. If it is not possible to address the fault, the meeting may have to be abandoned until such time as it can be reconvened. Can I remind members and officers and public speakers that all virtual meetings will be recorded and that these recordings will be published on the Council's website. So members, I will begin by calling the names of all the members of the committee to establish your presence. Please can you come off of mute and confirm your presence, please. We'll start with Councillor Ian Bates.
Present.
Councillor Chris Bowden. Not yet present. Councillor John Gowing.
Present.
Councillor David Jenkins.
Present.
Councillor Linda Jones.
Present.
Councillor Peter MacDonald.
Present.
Councillor Terry Rogers.
Present.
Councillor Mike Shellins.
Here.
Councillor Tim Wotherspoon.
Present.
And myself, Mark Goldsack, also present. Thank you. Apologies for absence declarations of interest. Would Dawn please report any apologies for absence?
We've no apologies for absence. We're expecting Councillor Bowden to join us any minute.
Okay.
We do have apologies from Chris Mallion from the officer's side.
Okay, thanks for that, Dawn. Does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? Okay, that's the absence of any of those. Then we will move on to item 2, the public minutes of the meeting of the 10th of July. We've been asked to approve the minutes of the meeting of the 10th of July as a correct record. Can I ask any member who does not agree with this proposal to click the raised hand function on the right of your screen now? I see no objections to the proposal to approve the minutes as a correct record, so we will take that as carried. On that basis, our committee happy to, right. On that basis, our committee members happy to approve the minutes as subject to the change. Sorry, no change. My fault. Apologies. I missed it. I will sign the minutes when we can next available, Dawn. Okay. An updated action log was included in the published papers for the meeting. Officers, do you have anything to add to the action log? Stunned by silence. That's good. If any members have any...
Sorry, Chairman. There was one from Chris on his action. He has done some sensitivity testing on the rental incomes as requested and will be running through the potential impact at the next meeting of the member working group, the details of which will be circulated shortly.
That was Chris Mallion, Dawn, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, yeah, obviously he's not here. Okay, if any members have any questions on the action log, would they use the raised hand function now? We do. Councillor Jenkins, David, please.
Yeah, I was going to raise the same issue on Action 358. Thank you for the update, Dawn. Who's on the member working group now, and does it still meet?
I'll need to check that and get back to you. I don't know off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
It may well be me, but I don't recall having met for a long time.
I'll check that and send an email round.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, David. Okay. Okay, we move to petitions and public questions. 3, Dawn. I don't think we have no petitions or public questions, do we?
No, Chairman, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Right, we're going to move. Before we move to this today, there is a quite a significant change to what is quite a short committee meeting anyway. And that is that I have asked officers to remove item 5, the Littleport land details. There's a couple of reasons for it, but fundamentally I think we're dramatically short on information and data on it. I've asked them to go again. It is going to still be on the committee, I believe, at CYP next week, which is the right and proper place for it to be before it comes back to this committee. So I've asked officers to go away and re-look at this paper and come with more information. We had some questions from the pre-meet as well, and quite frankly, we've asked the officers to go away and I don't want to say think again on this one, but certainly present in a different way.
Hello, Councillor Bowden.
Oh, Councillor Bowden has just joined us for the record. Can you hear us okay, Councillor Bowden? Well, he seems to be stuck in mid-salute. I didn't realise I carried such difference. Thank you very much for that. But no, I think we're still having problems with Councillor Bowden, so we'll leave you if we can.
Apologies for being late, Chairman.
He's there. Okay, no problem. Thank you. So with that, then we're going to move on to item 4, the insourcing the delivery of overnight short breaks and residential children's homes for children and young people. Can I invite the Assistant Director of Adults and Safeguarding, Debbie McQuaid, to introduce the paper?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So I think most of you haven't met me. I'm now the Assistant Director for Adults and Safeguarding across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And from Monday of this week, that includes the 0 to 25 service in Cambridgeshire, including short breaks. That's just to provide some context. So basically, the paper is to retrospectively provide the committee with information on the insourcing of the residential and overnight short breaks for disabled children back into the council, and in particular the implications on the future of the ongoing costs for the council. I would just like to say that the Children with Disability Programme Board had believed that all required approvals for the project had been obtained. However, in June of this year, it became apparent that the board was advised that the property aspects of the insourcing, including the cost and the use of the buildings, should have been presented to Commercial and Investment Committee. So I apologise because we're out of sequence, and it is, as I say, this report is coming retrospectively. So the report really provides background information. There was a review of the provision throughout 2019, a consultation with families and young people, and also a gap analysis in terms of the local provision. Following consultation, a business case was produced, and it was a decision was made that actually in terms of the transformation and long-term development of these services, that we would bring them back into the council. So the residential short breaks, we're talking about 3 homes, and Action for Children deliver that provision on our behalf. It was outsourced, and now we're bringing it back in, really around the transformation and development and around the quality of provision. So there's a lot of background information in the report. We've achieved phase 1 in terms of insourcing. We're going to move on to phase 2 in terms of mobilising and looking at a longer term model. But I guess really the areas that committee need to focus on are the resource implications and the bullet points in 4.1. So the service will cost more to provide in-house in the short term, but with the transformation of the provision, we are hoping to mitigate those costs. And by the transformation, what we really are, our aims and objectives are to deliver less short breaks where we can support families in a different way. And that might be through alternative commission services, or it could be through the use of direct payments, because we recognise for younger children with disabilities, the outcomes are much better if we can support them in the family environment. There is a pension pressure as a result of 2P, and there is the continued capital asset cost in terms of 3 council buildings and the increased management costs. So that's really a summary of the paper, but myself and Sasha Long, who's the head of service, are more than happy to try and answer any questions that the committee might have.
Okay, thank you, Debbie, and welcome. Would any members of the committee wishing to ask a question or make a comment, please use the raised hand function to the right of your screen now. We've got a few coming in. Terry, you were first up. Councillor Rogers, please.
Thank you. Just unmuted. Thank you. Debbie, thank you for the paper. I fully support the idea behind the paper. However, as a member of this committee, I must state that I'm not enamoured towards this particular paper on the financial aspects. You mentioned a business case, but there isn't a business plan. And as a committee, that's what we like to study in some detail. It strikes me from the figures presented, and you've already stated that there is quite a serious cost in the short term. And I hate the word "we're hoping to make good in the long term." With a business plan, we should have the figures presented before us as to how we are going to make good in the long term, not hoping to make good in the long term. And it struck me as I read through the paper that, in fact, there are quite substantial additional costs involved. The first point that hit me was when we were talking about 2Ping. I think the figure is somewhere at 87. I'm trying to look at my finger. 87 personnel from another firm, and I presume it's a private firm that runs this now, if we basically asked them to do it. Is that my correct assumption? You're nodding, thank you. My knowledge of private firms is they already run a tight ship. And if you're going to find that there are people not being employed, or you're looking for vacancies, that might be quite difficult. Obviously, but you're working with the system, you might be otherwise better informed than I am. So running 73 employees, question, is there going to be a saving there? Currently, the cost from this firm is 2.47 and the projected costs are 2.7. So there's that saving or requirement of around about 300, which you've already identified. I agree that that's fine. But on top of that, you then talk additional costs of running and maintenance, the 2Pay costs, which have yet to be identified, management costs, which have yet to be identified. You talked about London Road in the paper, and it struck me as not being fit for purpose, but then we found there's no other facility that can better it. So what needs to be spent on London Road to bring it back up from not being fit for purpose? That's not identified. I questioned the clinical commissioning group, 350,000. Where does that appear? It initially appears, but it's then not mentioned throughout the rest of the paper. I'm sorry to be so critical, but we are a committee that do look at figures. And unfortunately, there aren't the figures here to substantiate what you're doing. Now, I know we've gone past the point of no return. We've commissioned what we're doing already on the 3rd of September. But that is my feeling. I'm not sure what other members feel about this, and I look forward to hearing what they have to say. But I would like, perhaps, in agreement with other members, a more detailed paper to come back so that we can actually get a grasp of the figures and see what we can do in the future. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry about that, but I think that needed to be said.
I think, thank you, Terry. You raised some very, very good points there. Before I move, obviously, sum up, we have a number of other hands. We'll go in the order that they come. So next is Councillor Shellings. Mike, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. My comments very much overlap.
Yes,
Councillor Rogers.
I apologise, Mike. Could you just stop 1 second? We're being over. Somebody in Democratic Services is unmuted and is bleeding over the meeting. Thank you for that. Thank you. Apologise, Mike, if you could try again.
Right. It always comes out better the second time, Chairman, so that's advantageous.
I've no doubt.
My comments very much follow the theme of Councillor Rogers. I picked up the phrase, we hope to mitigate this extra cost in short order. What I'd like to know is how much of this saving that we have, or mitigation, are we going to get this year and then next year. So it's very much following the line of Councillor Rogers. We need a financial forecast. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Councillor MacDonald, Peter.
Thanks, Chair. It's more of a general question and thinking about the future. Just taking into account Councillor Rogers and Shellon's comments. Debbie, if you could just tell us, is this a one-off, or are there other sort of planned insourcing ideas or proposals? Because then we can get the sequence right again for anything considered in future. Thanks.
Thank you. And before we go to answer these, Debbie, we'll go to Councillor Jones. Linda, please.
Thank you. I think that other councillors on the committee have raised the kind of key financial issues, but I wanted to set it in a broader context, because I think what for me is missing still is the vision. You know, where are you hoping to go with this? Because in your presentation and in bits of the paper, you talked about it. Maybe we can kind of bring this back in and we can make it more efficient and effective and we can save some money. So is it just about kind of doing that? Or is there this longer term plan, which you suggested in your presentation, which is about phasing out some of this residential care, some of this presumably respite care, and supporting people in their own homes? In which case, is that going to be a higher cost or a lower cost? So that it seems to me there's a kind of, there's a wider business case, which must surely have been made somewhere about this. And I know that, you know, our prime concern of commercial investment is this particular case in front of us, but I feel very uncomfortable with not having that broader sense of, you know, where is this going? And Councillor MacDonald's comment about, you know, is this one of many? I mean, you know, we're a committee that a couple of years ago divested ourselves of the school meal service and the school cleaning service on the grounds that they could be better done outsourced. I mean, I didn't actually vote for that. I was very much, as you know, as a public health person, very much against it. But I mean, I just sort of feel there is, one would have thought that from this committee, let's say children, young people, there would have been more of a sense of, you know, where is the vision and where are we going? Maybe that is somewhere, but we haven't seen it here.
Okay, thank you very much, Linda. Councillor Jenkins. David, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Everything that Terry said was correct, but that's not a job for this committee. I think we need to be very careful that we don't second guess the responsibilities of other committees. What is missing here is evidence and confidence that CYPS has done all the work that Terry talks about. And I think this is a pretty shabby situation to find ourselves in. It's a result of doing things in the wrong order. We need to be clear that CYPS has made the appropriate decision based on a business case with an appropriate strategic view, and they need to have told us that they know what the extra costs are and they are willing to pay for it. Then all we have to do is decide, yeah, that's fine, carry on using the asset. So to a large extent, I think we should bounce this back to us and back to them and say, this is after the fact anyway, so we're not going to approve this today. We're going to wait for the proper statement of intent from CYPS.
Thank you, David. Could I just ask everybody that once you've spoken, unless you intend to come back again, could you lower your raised hand? Because a bear with a simple brain like me is struggling to work out who's next available to speak, which I think has now brought us round to Councillor Bates. Ian, I think it's your turn.
Thank you. I'm agreeing virtually with everything that has been said. I started with where's London Road, actually, okay, because I don't actually know where that is even. Okay, so my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, really is, bearing in mind the comments that all members have made, is that we ask for this paper to come back at a future date. I think we all have the principles. I think we're all pretty sound on the principles of wanting to provide this sort of care, etc. But we do need much better reports coming to this committee. So my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, is we don't approve it today, but we ask it to be deferred and a further report to come back in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ian. I'd just like to add something before coming back to Debbie as well. One of the questions that I had on the actual paper, that's agreeing with everybody's comments here this morning, was I've recently been speaking to the outdoor service, and I can't help thinking that, you know, has there been any liaison between this service and the outdoor service? We've got 3 locations across Cambridgeshire that provide accommodation for outdoor services, and I wonder whether there may be grounds there to link those two together. But in summary, Debbie, do you want to come back on anything, Debbie, or do you want me to sum up?
So I'm more than happy for you to sum up, and I apologise if I use the language we hope to. And I think also it's worth committee knowing that, you know, I understand in terms of the financials, and I'm more than happy to bring back and if you summarise what you require. But also, you know, we do have a vision in terms of supporting more people in the home environment, and moving away from our over-reliance on short breaks and shared care, etc., etc. And also we have the other rationale behind this was, for a number of years we've had quality issues with the with it being outsourced, and we know that by bringing it in-house that we can ensure that the quality is there, and we have the evidence of that from our short break centre in Peterborough, in terms of the ratings that are usually good and outstanding. So that was the other rationale behind, you know, to make sure that the outcomes and that our offer to young people and families is of the standard that we would want it to be. But yeah, I'm more than happy for you to summarise.
Well, I don't think the summary is going to be very long. First and foremost, let me put this out there, Debbie. We recognise you've been on board 5 minutes, so please don't take this personally, right? I think what I've seen this morning, I'm actually quite proud of. I'm actually seeing a CNI committee stand up for what the CNI committee is actually for, and that's non-political. It's just across the board to say, look, we're not happy with what we're seeing here. This is obviously a situation which has arisen by things being done out of sequence. And obviously there is an error here that suddenly brought this to us late in the day. I would have a question, Debbie, I'd like to know what would this actually mean to the service if we defer this decision, or rather when we defer this decision? I'd like to know what that actually means in the light that we are actually looking at this retrospectively.
So in reality, the homes are now back under Cambridgeshire County Council. So, you know, the delay in you approving this really won't have significant impact on the work that we need to do, and we will continue. And as I say, I apologise, you know, we're out of sequence, we're out of order. You should have seen, you know, it should have come to committee, you know, at the right time. You know, I acknowledge that, but it will, you know, in terms of you deferring any decision today, we will continue to do the work we need to do, and the services are back in-house.
Well, I think on that basis, Debbie, and please raise your hand if anybody's got an issue here, that I actually think that we should review this. You should go away and come back with a reviewed paper here, and actually making sure that the questions that were very eloquently raised today by our members do have answers in paperwork, so that we can come here and very much, you know, agree to this moving forward. I don't think I've heard anybody that's drastically against the principle of what we're talking about here, but it is the process. David Jenkins has raised his hand. David, come in, please.
Yeah, I just, and I don't know if my colleagues agree with me on this, it's up to CYPS to put together a comprehensive set of answers, and then we've simply got what is virtually a rubber stamp. All we're saying is that it's right to use the asset in this way.
that's very much how I see it. I'm not seeing any other hands raised in contention to that. I think that's what we're asking for here. So, Debbie, on that basis, we won't be taking a vote on this today, I'm afraid. If you can come back to us with the information exactly as David has just pointed out, and this is that you know, CYPS needs to be coming to us with all the business case and everything for us to. I hate the term, and I don't want this committee just to be a rubber stamping organisation, but retrospectively, I feel we have little choice. Is that okay, Debbie?
That's absolutely fine. I think I made note of most of the questions, but if I could just request that I get a copy of the notes and actions so that I've you know, we can comprehensively respond to everybody, and we're not in a position where I've, you know, somehow missed something in terms of trying to listen and make notes.
Well, without trying to make this too onerous, when you get them, when you get them, and of course you can also watch the recording again so you can hear them again, it might not be a bad idea for you to paraphrase them out to this committee members in case that there's any more that we want to add, because I think this is a little bit of a Swiss cheese bit of a paper here with lots of holes in it. If we can fill the holes in, we can move forward. Right, if everybody's happy with that, thank you, Debbie, and I will say it again, welcome to CNI. So we will move on with no vote taken there, Dawn, obviously. As I said earlier, we have asked officers, or rather I have asked officers, to take item 5 away and rethink. I felt that there was significant reasons for doing so and seriously lacking information, and a lot of those questions came out at the pre-meeting anyway. So that brings us very swiftly this morning to item 6, which is the committee agenda plan, training plan, and appointments to outside bodies. Dawn, are there any updates to the agenda plan and training plan?
Chairman, to the agenda plan, we've got one addition to the February 2021 agenda, which is the investment decision for the Baybram Road Park and Ride Clean Energy Project, and that's a key decision.
And that was February, was it, Dawn?
February, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Would any members of the committee wishing to ask a question make a comment on the agenda plan? Please raise a hand now. Okay, I'm seeing none. Dawn, are there any appointments to consider?
Yes, Chairman. The 3 appointments to consider. One was done by delegated powers over the summer, and that was a vacancy on the Energy Investment Programme Member Working Group. Councillor Hay had left that group as she was no longer on the committee, and Councillor Gowing was appointed to that vacancy. We've got some others. We've got a vacancy on the CAMS 2020 Member Working Group. Now, this one was meeting quite a lot, I understand, a year or so ago, and hasn't been having so many meetings. The other members of this group currently are yourself, Councillor Golsack, Councillor Schumann, Councillor Bates, Councillor Jenkins, Councillors Jones, Shellens and Rogers. And we've got a vacancy to fill Councillor Hayes' place.
Okay, before I go on to these, if I can just, there's a couple of hands been raised, so we'll take them in the order that they come. Mike Shellens, please.
I think my comment comes after you've concluded this bit, Chairman. So
no problem, Mike. I'll come back to you. Leave your hand up then, please. Chris Bowden.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm more than happy to volunteer for the CAMS 2020.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, let's go back to that then. So Councillor Gowing has now been appointed on that one. That's fine. So the CAMS 2020, we do have a vacancy here. As I say, I have recently seen correspondence as recent as this week that the CAMS 2020 member group is meeting again now and regularly. So just to reiterate, already members of the group are Councillors Goldsack, Schumann, Bates, Jenkins, Jones, Shellens, Rogers, and it was Councillor Hay, who's no longer on this committee. We've just heard that Councillor Bowden is willing to stand up to that. Is there anybody else that would like to be considered for it? Okay, well, with that, then I would like to welcome you on to the CAMS 2020 member group, Mr. Bowden. Thank you very much. Mike, not 100% sure when you want to come in, so if you want to unmute and speak at the time, but we also need to appoint a county farms champion. My suggestion on the county's farms champion is that I actually take it. And the reason I'd like to take it is it's a very keen area of my own. And I think, speaking amongst our group recently, it's very obvious that the farms want some focus and support. It's a crown jewel in where we're at. So I would be very happy to become the county farms champion. Got a couple of raised hands. Peter, I'll take you just in case it's still not Mike wanting to speak. So I'll come to you next if I can.
Yeah, I think, Chair, you'll do a good job as champion. I will support you in that work as I'm working in agriculture.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Peter. I think that would be a good shout. Still seeing your hand, Mike. Not sure when you want to come in. Do you want to give us a clue?
Yes, Chairman. I'm in some uncertainty as to when to raise this. I thought it might be appropriate for me to give a very few comments for the time that I sat in on the this land meeting, which I observed, and I don't know if you're
okay. No,
happy to
I
take
that. So before we do that, and I really welcome the opportunity. And maybe that's something when we've been to when an observer's been. I think that's something we could put as a standard agenda update item each month. I think that would be a good thing. And thank you for raising it, Mike. But before we do that, Dawn, are you comfortable there that you've got those 3 member group committee names down?
Yes, Chairman, that's
okay.
correct.
Fine. Right. Councillor Shellens, would you like to tell us what your role was and how you got on observing this land meeting?
Right, Chairman. It was a very curious experience. Obviously, I made no attempt to speak, but I just observed the meeting. Now, I have some difficulties with confidentiality requirements and talked with Michelle Rowe about that, and I'm therefore not going to give any detail, but I'm going to give some impressions. And my impression is that it was a meeting dominated by the chairman, which is not unexpected, but I was very surprised that I did not recall at the end of the meeting one material contribution made by any of the 7 non-execs. And I felt that as they cost 345,000 and the chairman's another 50,000, that we're spending basically 300,000 a year of money that I don't think this land has on a set of people who very worthy, but I am totally unaware as to the contribution that they make. And I wondered if it might be appropriate for this committee to ask Councillor Schumann rather, who is on the committee, to come and tell us what his role is in a situation where we're not bound by confidentiality constrictions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for making the comments. I really do appreciate that. I'd like to just come up on a couple of things on that. I've not met the chairman yet, but I am going to see the chairman next week. So I would be quite happy to pass on those comments on behalf of the committee to. We're talking about Steve Norris here. I've actually got a meeting with him next week, so I'd be quite happy to pass on your observations. With regard to inviting Councillor Schumann to this meeting as the shareholder representative, again, if we think that that's the right thing to do, I'd be quite happy to do that. Since your observation role, Mike, I and a number of other members did attend the This Land annual general meeting, and I have to say, I'm not doubting your observations of the general committee meeting, but the AGM certainly wasn't a chairman's show. It was very much across the board, and I think it's fair to say was reasonably encouraging in terms of their performance against the new or the latest agreed business plan. Since then, just as early as last week, I understand that they've had planning permission passed on the Warts Causeway, which is one of their larger things. That made me breathe a little bit of a sigh of relief. And I think they've also had a number of planning permissions passed, certainly in March and in Cambridge city centre. So if you're okay with me to do that, I will certainly use the forum next week to tell Steve Norris that or inform Steve Norris, not tell, inform Steve Norris that, you know, our observer found that this was his observations, basically. Mike, happy to come back on that.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased, obviously, that there's a degree of satisfaction with what you observed. My question would be whether the elements that were not dominated by the chairman were contributed by officers or by non-executive directors, because it was the non-execs that my query was regarding, not the officers.
No, I completely and utterly understand that. Well, I won't comment on that now, but what I will do is speak to Steve next week and come back to you on that. There's a number of us on the This Land thing, but I think the point we've got here is very much that those that attended that meeting and we've got this observation role now, and I think we should have an update. So I will invite Councillor Schumann to come along and just tell us where we're going. Secondly, right, Councillor Bates, Ian, can you come in on this, please?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Chairman. Bearing in mind that this is not on the agenda and it is still being recorded, question. Okay, I think we need to be conscious of this is a public meeting, and therefore to have discussions which are not on the agenda. I'm not disagreeing or agreeing one way or the other, but I think we need to just be a little cautious on that particular front. I'm content for you and the Vice Chairman, Chris, to perhaps have those discussions with officers and take that away a little bit. So that's my only comment.
I appreciate the feedback, and I also will comment positively that I think Councillor Shallons has done extremely well not to bring any element of confidentiality to the table, and everything that I said there I know was backed up as public domain. So I don't think we've broken any confidences. But the fact that it's not on the agenda, I will note this. I will ask Dawn to make sure that this is on future agendas, any observer review, and we will move forward. So if there are no other points on this matter, I thank you for a very quick meeting this morning and apologise that it's a quick meeting and the fact that we haven't had a single vote. So it's all very good. Maybe we can vote where we can go for breakfast. Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you in the next few weeks. Thank you.